one of the marquee games. In fact, it was surprising that it was a 10 a.m. start. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Indianapolis Colts, two teams that were kind of trending in the wrong direction or the opposite directions, rather. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came back to beat the Colts on the road at Lucas Oil Field, 38-31. To me, this was probably the most impressive win of the Buccaneers season, especially if you date back to the season opener against the Dallas Cowboys when they won an opening night of the NFL season. This was arguably their best win of the year, because this was a team in Tampa Bay that was starting to trend in the wrong direction. They had lost their final game entering the bye week. They lost their first game coming out of the bye week. And this was an important test for them because they really hadn't collected any marquee wins, again, since that Dallas Cowboys game. Obviously, the game against the New England Patriots, it's aging well, given what we're seeing from New England. But really, this was a statement victory against, I would argue, one of the top 2 or 3 hottest teams in the NFL. The Indianapolis Colts had won 5 of their last 6 games. They were really streaking in the right direction, and everything changed in the second half. The first half absolutely was dominated by the Indianapolis Colts. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers still looked a little bit sluggish. They seemed to be one of those teams kind of traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast, having to play in an early morning slate. Obviously, they were a little bit rusty, perhaps, though why that was the case, I'm not sure. But the Indianapolis Colts dominated the first 30 minutes of this game. And in the second half, especially in the third quarter, that's when the tone shifted, because the defense forces a fumble on Carson Wentz. They turn it into points, into a touchdown. Then Antoine Winfield picks off Carson Wentz, turns it into a long drive that the Buccaneers end up punching in to score a touchdown, and they outscore the Colts 14-0 in that third quarter. And that was really the change in the game, was the entire momentum, the entire pace of play shifted in the direction of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this is the interesting thing about the Buccaneers. And this is actually selfishly a big reason why I picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense on my fantasy team. But this is why their defense has been so heralded. This isn't a defense that is going to lock you down, put you into handcuffs, and render your offense completely futile and unproductive. That's not what's made the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so feared. They've been misunderstood the entire time. The Buccaneers defense has been misunderstood. This isn't a team that's necessarily going to hold you to the fewest points in the NFL, but what they are going to do is be very opportunistic and dynastic defensively. They create and wreak havoc. They're flying all over the field. They force turnovers. They had 5 turnovers. They forced 5 turnovers yesterday. 2 picks, 3 fumbles, multiple sacks on Carson Wentz. That's what you need to be doing if you're an elite level defense. That's what's made the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who they are. 14 interceptions on the year. They have forced 23 turnovers on the season, which is top 5 in the NFL. So we've kind of been misunderstanding what this defense is supposed to be. This isn't a team that's going to hold opponents to 10 points or less. They're going to give up yards in the middle and big chunk plays in the middle of the field. But when they have to make a play, create an interception, create a turnover, that's what they're capable of doing. And that was the difference in this game, was their defense started to step up, and the Bucs trusted their run game. Leonard Fournette torched the Colts for 100 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. They trusted the run game. It's like the Indianapolis Colts had completely forgotten about Jonathan Taylor till it was too late. That 185 rushing yard, 5 touchdown performance last week against the Buffalo Bills seemed to have been wiped clean from their memory by the time they turned to Jonathan Taylor in the fourth quarter, who was productive in the fourth quarter. It was too late. They orchestrated a great drive, but they gave Tom Brady too much time on his hands, and they didn't allow Jonathan Taylor to wear down this Buccaneers defense, even though they were going up against a stout defensive team, especially against the run in the Buccaneers. So that was the big difference. The defense was opportunistic. They trusted the run game more than the Indianapolis Colts. And again, in that third quarter, that's where everything kind of unraveled and got away from the Colts. They had this game in the bag, and I actually thought that through the first 30 minutes in the first half and in the fourth quarter, if you omit the third quarter, which I realize is a big chunk of time in an NFL game, but if you omit that third quarter, I thought Carson Wentz played his best game of the year. I thought he was looking the most impressive that he's looked since under Frank Reich in Philadelphia in 2017 during his MVP candidate season before he tore his ACL. This was a guy who, entering this contest yesterday, had 18 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. Obviously, when he was an MVP front runner, he had 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, so he was committing few turnovers. And again, prior to that third quarter, he was on just a feverish pace, 21 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. He was standing in the pocket. He was delivering third down throws. He was making big-time plays. He wasn't turning the ball over. He was careful with the football. And I just thought that he played the most calm and collected and poised that he had looked really this whole year. I mean, yes, he's had some good performances this year against the Jets and a couple other teams, a couple other bottom feeders, but this was, when you factor in the level of competition, again, it was heading in the direction like Carson Wentz was about to have the best game of the season for him. Then that third quarter, again, things spiraled out of control, and he committed 2 turnovers, and it led to 2 touchdowns for the Buccaneers. And unfortunately, again, I love the Indianapolis Colts. I've been bullish about them the entire year. They're streaking in the right direction. I like that I'm starting to see their defense emerge even more. Kwity Paye, the defensive end out of Michigan, there was a reason why he was projected to be the best defensive player in the draft this year, because he's 6'3" and 260 pounds and had tremendous upside. The only reason why he fell a little bit so that the Colts could draft him was because of a potential, because of an injury that he had sustained. So he was recovering from that. But obviously, DeForest Buckner is huge. Darius Leonard. This entire defense came up with a couple big stops when they had to for about 56 minutes. And then the final drive, obviously, Brady does what Brady does, and he orchestrates a game-winning drive. But I thought that this was just an important win for, again, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that statistically, when they had exited when they were coming off of the bye week last year, they didn't lose a game. They were 8-0 after the bye week last year. That's what propelled them to their Super Bowl run. And they had come out of the gates a little bit sluggish this time around. And now, hopefully, they might be clicking at the right time, because they're going to need to. And this was a major first step in that direction.